Okay, we're on. So, my name is Harry Purvis, for those of you who don't know, and today we're going to cover the top 5 mistakes that people make with their fat loss. Now, I don't want to make this a generic, you've got to be in a deficit, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, this is what your protein needs to be, this is what you should do with your fat intake, eat these kind of foods. I want to be thinking more broad spectrum than that, okay? Now, before we get into that, I would say I'm an expert of fat loss. I've been doing this for 10 years. I probably worked with every single conceivable possible type of person there is. I started my career in Australia, then I moved to London, where I worked for Ultimate Performance, set up my own business. I've been doing all of these things, working with clients from all over the world, in person and online. Now I'm only doing online. So I hope by the end of this video or any time in between, I pushed you a little bit closer to working with me online as a client, okay? So first things first, before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of this video, why do we want to lose fat? What is the reason for doing that? Well, simply put, I'm not talking about bodybuilding shape here, but life is just better when you're in shape. Leaving the aesthetics apart, leaving the abs aside, leaving the big biceps aside for a second here. If you're a parent, for example, and you want to play with your young kids, you've got to be fit and healthy to do that. You're not going to be able to do that if you're a guy and you're 120 kilos, or if you're a mum and you're 90 kilos. You're not going to be able to play with your kids. You're not going to be able to walk up flights of stairs. You're not going to be able to run for the bus if you ever need to run for the bus. I'll give you a quick example on that. You know, my apartment in Medellin, at the moment, I live in Colombia, and it has one of the best views I've ever seen of any apartment I've stayed in. And I'm not staying in an expensive place or an expensive area, but the view here of the city is out of this world. Now, of course, with the view, you need to be high up, right? Every day I have to walk up this steep hill and down this steep hill just to get to and from like the gym, the Spanish school, etc. Would I be able to stay in this apartment if I was unfit? No. Definitely not. If I was overweight and out of shape and I had a lot of body fat on me, there's no way I'll be walking up that hill and being able to sit in this apartment and enjoy the view. So just before we get into it, you want to basically trying to say, you want to be fit and healthy and have low levels of body fat just so you can enjoy life. And it's not even about the aesthetics, okay? So the first reason, people go too hard when they start a fat loss phase. It's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? There's a ceiling as to how much body fat you can actually lose in a week. So let's say you're out of shape now and you've got a holiday coming up in 4 weeks' time, right? And you said to yourself, right, I've got 4 weeks, I'm going to go really hard. You're only ever going to be able to lose a pound or 2 maximum of body fat in 1 week. So it doesn't really make sense to go that hard. Now, when you start your fat loss phase, you might be thinking, I'm going to go really hard because my motivation's high and I'm going to be motivated the whole time I'm doing this fat loss phase. And the reality is your motivation is high when you start. For the first week or two, you're going to be motivated. You're doing a new plan. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's different to what you were doing before. So there's an element of novelty to that. But after that first week or two period is over and you're out of the honeymoon period, you're going to get bored of the program. You're going to get tired of the gym. The initial interest you had in your brand new fat loss phase just before your holiday is going to run out pretty quickly. And so if you go too hard right at the start, yes, those 1 or 2 weeks, first 2 weeks might be really good, but then weeks 3 and 4 and beyond are going to be terrible. So instead of trying to sprint 100%, give yourself a big deficit, loads of cardio, training every day, really going all guns blazing for, let's say, 2 weeks at a time, and then you fall off the bandwagon, you're way better. You'll be in a way better position if you just did a slow and steady approach for twice the amount of time, so for 8 weeks, rather than trying to sprint towards the end for 4 weeks. It just makes sense. And the second point, this is still on the first point, people going too hard. Everyone, including myself, underestimates how much body fat they have to lose. Most people, I would say, that I've worked with probably need to lose at least 10 kilos. Okay, some people even more than that. Some people they'll be looking at 15 or 20 kilos. Could you sprint? Let's say you're one of these people who needs to lose 10 or 15 kilos. Can you sprint to lose those 10 or 15 kilos? Not sprinting literally, but in terms of like lifestyle, how big your deficit is, how low your food is, how much cardio you're going to be doing. Because let's say you're going to lose a kilo a week. Could you do a really hard program for 10 weeks? No, not even I could do that. And I work in the fitness industry. I live and breathe the gym, and I am already in good shape. So if I'm not able to really sprint for 10 weeks and do a super hardcore program and only eat chicken and broccoli and give myself a big deficit and do loads of cardio, Joe Blogs on the street has absolutely no chance of doing that. So the first point, do not go too hard at the start of your fat loss phase because you'll only shoot yourself in the foot later on, okay? The next one, relying on exercise to burn calories. Now, I get it, right? It does actually make logical sense. If you want to lose some fat, if you want to lose some weight, you need to exercise more. And that is correct. I'll explain a little bit more in a second, but you do definitely want to increase the amount of exercise you're doing on a regular basis, whether that be gym work, whether that be doing classes in the gym, whether that be walking. Yes, but you should not be relying on exercise as a tool to create a deficit. I'll give you a really simple example. How easy is it to eat 500 calories? Pretty easy. How much effort does it take? Not that much effort. You could just have a bowl of ice cream and you've got 500 calories. Okay. How much time does it take to eat 500 calories? Well, if I'm hungry and I've just made some pasta bolognese, I'm eating 1,000 calories within about 4 minutes. So let's say 2 minutes for that 500 calories. Basically, it's very easy to consume 500 calories, right? Okay, and on the flip side, how difficult is it then to burn those 500 calories extra that you would be burning already just being alive? Because remember, most of the energy that we burn over a 24-hour period is just energy we were going to burn anyway, just being alive. Around 60% of our total daily energy expenditure is just our basal metabolic rate. Keeps our organs going, keeps our blood flowing. Basically, the energy that is used while we're asleep. Okay, additional exercise only makes up 10 or 15% of this pie chart of our overall energy expenditure. So going back to the 500 calorie example, how difficult is it to burn additional 500 calories? Well, if you get on the treadmill and you start walking and running, you need to be doing that for hours to be burning 500 calories extra. So given that, how easy is it to eat 500 calories? How difficult is it to burn an additional 500 calories? You may as well just not eat the 500 calories in the first place, right? Instead of trying to burn those extra calories. So, as I said in the first point, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So you should not be using exercise as your only tool or your main tool to create that deficit. Use diet, not eating food, not drinking calories as your main tool to create that deficit. And then just use exercise a little bit in the form of steps to just give yourself a little top up. Now, the little top up isn't going to be your main part of the energy expenditure, but it's just a little nice extra to have on the top. Okay, so that's what you need to do. Don't treat exercise as a fat loss burning tool. Just use it as a nice little optional extra on top of controlling basically what goes into your mouth. Okay, a little bit of a sexual innuendo there. The third one, wishful thinking. I remember I saw a quote a few years ago from Elon Musk where I can't actually remember what he was talking about specifically, but someone asked him a question and he replied with, I just think it's wishful thinking. And he went on to say, a lot of us as human beings just like to wishfully think throughout the day about everything. You know, if I did this, I'd be having more money. Or like, I don't only need to lose a kilo or two of body fat. Or, you know, one time it took me 10 minutes to go from A to B in an Uber. So now from forever forwards, it's only ever going to take 10 minutes. But knowing that one trip where there was just no traffic and you managed to hit green lights along the way was the only reason you got there in 10 minutes. Don't fall into the trap of wishfully thinking about your fat loss phase. Everyone has more body fat than they think they have to lose. It always takes longer than you think to lose that body fat. And thirdly, things always happen that you don't expect. If you think you have a clear run for the next 10 weeks for your fat loss, so you have nothing in the diary, no holidays, no plans, no nothing, you can just lock in on your hardcore program and then reach your goal at the end of the 10 weeks, I guarantee you at weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, some life curveball will happen. You get sick, you can't go to the gym, something happens where it needs your attention, like a relative is in hospital, or someone needs your help. You can't go to the gym. I remember in Piccadilly in London, every winter the gym used to flood when the temperature went below a certain amount. Normally it was like -1 overnight. The pipes would freeze, then there would be a water kind of drainage burst, whatever. So I'd go into the gym the next day, and the whole bottom floor of the gym would be flooded. And this is where all the machines were, all the pin-loaded machines. They were all on this bottom floor. And so I used to walk into the gym like basically every year. Let's say I had legs on the menu. I wanted to do some leg curl, leg extension, abduction, adduction, whatever. The gym was flooded and it was closed. So I could have been in the middle of my hardcore training. I'm not going to miss a session. I'm going to push myself hard every time. I'm going to smash leg day. I'll turn up to the gym's flooded. Or there's a power cut. Sometimes in Colombia, there's power cuts. So life throws you curveballs, which you cannot expect. And so don't fall into the trap of wishfully thinking everything's going to be perfect from day one until whenever you finish. Let's say you're about to go on holiday, the day before you go on holiday. Life will throw you curveballs, and more often than not, you can't be predicting these curveballs. Okay. Fourth point, changing your training. So if our diet is the tool we're kind of using to create a deficit, resistance training is the only tool we have to actually stimulate and grow muscle. Because basically the reason why you want to lose fat is, yes, to be healthier, but B, to look good. And so there are two parts of this equation. We have body fat and we have muscle. Okay. So losing body fat is actually the easy part. We do that with, let's say, steps and a calorie deficit. With the training, the only way that we can actually build muscle is, with building muscle, the only way we can facilitate that is with training. So the goal of your training program or your training approach when you're in a fat loss phase should be to still build muscle, or at least maintain the muscle you already have. A classic mistake people make is, right, so let's say 1 week they're in their bulk mode, they're training heavy, they're hitting the weights, they're doing 8 to 12 reps, they're squeezing their muscles hard, they're doing all the right things to grow muscle because they're in a bulking phase and they're in a growth phase, and it's all good. The following week, let's say they've started their fat loss phase, like, right, now we're in a fat loss phase, we've done with the bulking now, we're in a fat loss phase, and suddenly they start changing their training. They start doing battle ropes, they start doing HIIT classes, they start doing higher reps because it helps to tone the muscle or burn more calories. And it's just stupid. And then they wonder why they tend to be losing more muscle than they would do otherwise when they're in that deficit. Is because they've changed the training. So my advice is, do not change your training, whether you're in a building phase or a fat loss phase, because training is the only tool we have to create a stimulus which grows muscle. None of us have enough muscle. Look at me, right? I'm not just flexing. Well, I'm literally flexing, but I'm not just flexing to show off. I've been training. So I started training when I was 17, and then seriously training since I was 19. So 2 first years, I was just doing bicep curls in the mirror in the gym. So 19, I'm 32 now. So I've been training kind of 13 to 15 years, and I look normal. If you walk past me on the street in Medellin, you would not look at me and go, oh, wow, that guy just has like so much muscle. It's ridiculous. He just looks massive. Unless you're taking performance enhancing drugs, which, by the way, a lot of guys and now women do. Most of your favorite influencers, apart from me, will be taking steroids and they'll just be lying about it. There's no way you can build enough muscle in your lifetime. There's no way. And given that men's testosterone tends to kind of drop maybe mid-30s like this, there's really no chance of anyone, unless they're using performance enhancing drugs, to have built more muscle. So given that, when you're in a fat loss phase, train to build muscle. Stay in the 8 to 12 rep range. Do all your normal exercises. Don't do reps quickly because it's going to burn fat. Nice and slow. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. Hit your protein intake, which is the diet side of things. Recover from your workouts. Don't start doing a stupid split where you're doing like half an hour weights in the morning and then 30 minutes of HIIT in the evening. Just do 1 hour of weights and let the diet take care of the deficit. Please do not change your training, okay? This is why people tend to lose more muscle than they would do otherwise when they're in a deficit, because you will lose some muscle or deficit, obviously. By definition, when you're in a deficit, the deficit being you are consuming less calories than you're expending, you're in a catabolic state. You are going to lose muscle. And our main goal is to try and minimize that muscle loss as much as realistically possible. Sure, if you're on steroids, you can build muscle in a deficit. Ooh, amazing. But if you're not taking steroids, you will lose a little bit of muscle when you're in a deficit. That's normal. We just have to offset that a little bit by having adequate protein intake, which I'm not going to talk about in this video, it'll be for another one. And then also from the training side of things, give your muscles enough of a stimulus to hang around. If you built your physique doing 8 to 12 reps, if you start doing 20 reps with a lighter weight for a prolonged period of time, you're probably going to start losing muscle, which isn't what you want to do. You don't want that to happen, okay? The next one. Just had a baby. Just had it today. Why did I say that? Just had a baby. Thanks, Cristiano. Good to see you guys in the chat. Thanks, Grant. Okay, back to it. Sorry, Grant. I don't know why I read that baby there. That was my fault. The last one. So this is something that I tell people when they ask me for the number one tip for being in shape. And before I tell them, I say, you're really not going to like my reply. You're not really not going to like this point, but you still want me to tell you anyway. And they go, yeah, tell me. So I say, there's nothing you can do about it, but the best tip for getting in shape is never getting out of shape in the first place. It's so much harder to get fit if you are currently fat, right? Do not fall into the trap. This also plays into the wishful thinking thing. Do not fall into the trap of thinking, oh yeah, great, I can just like lose the fat. It's all good. No, so don't worry. Next year, I'll do like a hardcore fat loss phase and it'll be easy to lose the fat. It is difficult to lose body fat. It is easy to put it on. Okay, so given that logic, it makes no sense to almost deliberately get out of shape because you just kid yourself that, oh, next month or next week, I'm going to do a hardcore diet. I'm going to maybe take a Zempeg and it will be great. That's just not the reality. If you're watching this and you're currently like still kind of in shape, but the trajectory is you currently going out of shape, stop. Get back in shape again. Do not allow yourself to get out of shape. Because also what happens, right? As you get out of shape, you age. All of us are aging. Me, my dog, everyone watching this, every single person on planet Earth is aging. And after a certain point, maybe mid-20s to 30s, things get more difficult than they did back in the day. When you're 18 years old, easy to get in shape, right? When you're 40 years old and you have 3 mortgages, you've been divorced once, you have an ex-wife, you have a dog, you've got 4 kids. How difficult is it then to get in shape age 40, given that scenario? Almost impossible, right? So given that, do not allow yourself to get out of shape in the first place. And yes, it does require more effort to stay in shape, right? But hear me out on this. Everything that we do is hard. Being out of shape and fat is difficult, right? There's no one walking around who's 150 kilos going like, this is really easy. They're not even walking. They're probably in a mobility scooter, right? They're not waking up every day going, oh, great, this is so easy. Life on easy mode. Their life is difficult when they're super fat. The super fit, in shape David Goggins doing a marathon every day. His life is hard as well. He's training, he's dieting, he's watching what he eats, he's not having alcohol. In David Goggins' example, he's doing a marathon every day. Extreme example, I know, but also this 150 kilo man was extreme example. Both scenarios are difficult, so pick your hard. Being broke, having no money is difficult, right? You're living with your parents, you have to eat what your mum makes you, you have no disposable money, you have no freedom. Life's difficult. If you're a hedge fund manager and you're making 20 million quid a year and you have all these board meetings and you have pressure and you have people calling you asking for their money and the market's down and on paper you've lost billions of dollars or whatever it may be, your life is also hard as well. So pick your hard. Goes back to what I said about the first point. Life is better when you're in shape. No, you don't need to be personal trainer, bodybuilder, 8% body fat, training every day in shape, but you need to be in shape to do everyday things. I've been in Colombia for a month. I wouldn't have been able to do half the things I've done if I was out of shape. Hiking on the weekend, meeting cool people, running on a Sunday, again meeting lots of interesting people, hitting the gym almost every single day, seeing how they do things there, walking up the hill to my Airbnb so I can see this incredible view of Medellin, which is inspiring. It's amazing. I can just look out on the view and it just, I feel like absolutely on top of the world. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was out of shape. And sure, I have to put some effort in. I have a date tonight. I'm gonna cook for us instead of going out to a restaurant because I don't want to go out to a restaurant today because I went to a couple of restaurants on the weekend. I want to really kind of like lock in this week. So it's going to be difficult. Yeah, I have to buy the ingredients. I'm going to have to cook for her. I'm going to have to cook for us. I'm going to have to watch what I have. But this is better than the alternative, which is to get out of shape in the first place and then live a life of, I don't want to kind of not glamorize it, but I don't want to kind of like over exaggerate it, but live life of miserably, not happy with how you look, out of shape, can't walk up a hill, have to take the lift everywhere, can't walk up a flight of stairs. So that's the fifth point: is do not get out of shape in the first place because it is so much more difficult to get back in shape once you've been out of shape, especially when you're in your 30s and 40s. And people don't talk about this. People go, especially personal trainers, people go, you can get into shape like whatever age you are, whether you are 50 or 60, it's easy. True, you can get into shape when you're 50 and 60 years old, but it's a lot easier just to get into shape when you're in your 20s and then stay in shape through your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Yes, it requires effort, but nowhere near as much effort as it would take to get back in shape when you're, let's say, 60 years old, if you're super fat and unfit. Okay, so that's my final point. And yeah, there's that saying, isn't there? The best time to start was yesterday, then the second best time to start is today. I wish I'd started this YouTube channel 10 years ago, right? Because right now I'd probably have 10,000 subscribers, I'd be monetized, I'd have a bigger audience, I'd have way more experience, I'd be making better videos. But the fact of the matter is, I only started making these videos in November last year. I've only been doing it for 10 months. And so if you're watching this and you are currently on that trajectory of getting really out of shape, yes, yesterday would have been the better place to start, or maybe today last year. But the second best time to start is now, is right today, okay? And so you can check out the other videos on my channel and have a look at what you need to do to kind of start and lose body fat and everything, because it's fairly straightforward. But I really hope you guys have found this video helpful. Just my 5 top mistakes people make with their fat loss. And I'll catch you in the next video, okay? Cheers. Before we go, I'm just going to answer some questions, okay? Cristiano, yes. You know what? A sixth point, let's call this an honorary 6th point. Walking is a bit of a superpower. It's something that doesn't feel like exercise most of the time, but it can have a good, not a massive, but a good impact on A, your fitness, and B, how much calories you burn over the course of the day. And the best thing about walking is it doesn't feel like formal exercise. It's not like you are in the gym, you're like, right, I'm training now, I'm on the treadmill, high incline, da 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 da. It's like taking your dog for a walk. It's like walking to the shop. It's just like walking to a different part of the city that you haven't walked before. And also, when you're in a fat loss phase, especially during the European summer months, a little trick, The tough time is after work in the evening, right? That's when you're going to be over consuming calories. And so you're sat at home, you have the fridge there, the fridge is full of food, you have the cupboards ready, da 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 da. The temptation is there. So instead of just sitting on your sofa, thinking about food, potentially going off your diet plan and consuming calories, if you just go out for a walk for an hour, you're not at home and you don't have that temptation. There's no way that if you're just walking down the street, you can just pop into your fridge and grab something to eat because you're outside of it. So just taking yourself away when you're at home from the kitchen environment and going out and about doing steps, not only physically removes you from the kitchen, which is important, but also, yeah, you burn some energy. If it's nice weather, you kind of enjoy the weather, you get some fresh air. If you have an animal like a dog, they'll enjoy going for a walk well with you. And yeah, and it goes back to was it the second point I said, which is you shouldn't rely on walking as your main kind of calorie burn. Don't be consuming 500 calories of ice cream because you've done 20,000 steps a day. No, treat the steps as just like a little icing on the cake, a little sprinkle, and it will really help. That being said, though, there is a sweet spot. If you did too many steps, 25,000, 30,000 a day, you would tip yourself over the edge when you start to just get really hungry. And even if you burn, let's say, 1,000 calories doing those 30,000 steps, you will probably be so hungry after doing that you will overconsume by 1,000 calories, right? So there's a sweet spot. I reckon the sweet spot is anywhere between 10 and 16 or 17,000 as a daily average over the year, okay? Ever so often, if you have a day where you do 20,000 or 30,000, that's okay. I'm talking about the average here. Anything less than 10,000, you're probably not doing enough steps to kind of tick that additional exercise box. But if you do between 10 and 16,000, I reckon that's okay. Any more than that, and you'll kind of start to offset the benefits that you got from doing the steps, because you'll just be so hungry that you'd overconsume those calories. Grant, yeah, new gym partner. You know what? I actually wish I had a regular gym partner to train with, but because of my schedule and I kind of train at different times every day, it's almost impossible for me to find one. But if you can train with someone in the gym, I think it levels up your training, especially if the person you are training with is like a little bit stronger than you. You don't want them to be so much stronger that they're bench pressing 4 plates and you're doing 40 kilos. But if, let's say, you're bench pressing, I don't know, 70 kilos for 8 reps, if they're benching 80 kilos for 8 reps, so they're kind of still in your ballpark strength region, but they're not so far ahead that it's just unrealistic, it can really help you level up your training. And even with me, if I ever train with someone, I definitely train harder when I have someone next to me. It pushes you. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to do technique badly. You don't want to kind of rush the reps if you're with someone. You want to do it properly. So if you are lucky enough to have a training partner with you, try to train with them as often as reasonably possible over the course of the week. But at the same time, don't over rely on them. So let's say they cancel a gym session because they're busy and they have some stuff going on. Don't then say to yourself, oh, great, because like Jeff has cancelled training, I'm not going to train either. I'm just going to put my feet up and have a cup of tea. Still go, but on your own. Okay, so don't over rely on them to get your training sessions in. Cool. That's the live done. I hope you guys found this video useful. Like and subscribe, and then I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.